afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As I prepared my presentation, I had in mind the themes for the 2 international weeks that we just completed. Our relationship to God and the road to freedom. I then realized that my own personal road to freedom is my relationship to God and to His image in all living beings. So therefore, I wrote my presentation. I'm truly honored and humbled to be here in beautiful Klint, Denmark, speaking to you about my finding, Martinus. A wise man once wrote, "In reality, there is no distance at all between God and the Son of God. They are eternally connected, and each determines one another's experience and manifestations of life. Thus, a closer connection between 2 living beings than that between the Godhead and a living being cannot exist. It is a living connection of consciousness, born by the very highest form of love, omniscience, and omnipotence." This was Martinus. One of the most interesting topics of conversation at the Martinus Center seems to be, how did you find Martinus? This reminds me of an American game. Where's Waldo? Waldo travels around the globe, hidden in the crowd, teaching folks about the world. I believe Where's Martinus is much more enlightening. We discover the reality of the universe when we find Martinus. I've marked this slide with places around the world where I found Martinus to be studied. I know I don't have them all. And if you would kindly let me know this afternoon other places that you know of, I'd like to add them to my map for future presentations in the U.S.
Australia.
Before I tell you about my personal journey of finding Martinus, I'd like to talk a little bit about the U.S. and my own personal background. As most of you might know, we are a country of approximately 318 million people in 50 states within 9.83 million square kilometers. It's a big place. There are many religions, many viewpoints, and many ideas. We are still a religious country. We're becoming more spiritual, but we are religious. How do I use the pointer?
The green button.
Thank you. As you can see, this area, which is in the southern part of the U.S., is referred to as the Bible Belt. This is the area of the U.S. where the Bible is studied and taken literally as to what the message is in the Bible. I come from this state right here. That's where I was born. And that area is Roman Catholic. This area, where I live now, is mostly Southern Baptist. I was born in Ohio, and I was baptized Christian. I prayed to God. I went to college, and then I studied Latin, English, and science. There in college, I was faced with the age-old conflict between science and religion. Whoops. Nobody wanted to talk about the 2 subjects together. As you can see, you have science duking it out with religion. But there you have that Bible Belt. And you can't hit below that Bible Belt. So it seems I was always searching for the truth within both my love of science and my love of religion. But that truth didn't seem to exist. I became a Latin and English teacher. I got married. I got divorced. I got married again. I got divorced again. There was lots of suffering, and Karma and I became very close friends. Then, one Sunday morning in November 1998, and this is what it looks like in Ohio in November, I had just finished reading the newspaper. So I closed my eyes. I wasn't asleep, and I wasn't awake. Suddenly, inside my head, a triangle appeared. First of all, there was a glowing ball or circle of yellow light at the top. And then on one side, there was glowing red. Sorry. And on the other side, glowing blue. The colors were vibrating as energy or light. I opened my eyes and I thought, what was that? I assumed it was just stress because I was going through a difficult time in my life. My son was going to college, divorce, and so forth. So I got up, I continued my day, but that night, when I went to lie down in bed, that glowing triangle appeared again. But this time, there was a white circle glowing above. I opened my eyes again. I grabbed a piece of paper, and I quickly drew what had appeared. But as you can see, I'm not an artist. You can ask my students. I draw stick figure Roman people. These are two of my earliest drawings and writings. And please remember, I was only drawing these for myself. I never thought that anybody would see them. And these are only a small fraction of the drawings and writings that I've done. The next day, and for a period of over a weeks continued, these beautiful triangles evolved. More colors, green, orange, purple. They were all glowing and vibrating. And then they were all surrounded by white. And I suddenly realized that that white was symbolic of God. Then numbers joined in. 0 was white, 1 was yellow, 2 was red and blue, etc. Each color then developed a meaning. Then it all started becoming very, very complex in my head. So I kept writing and drawing. Musical notes showed up one day. Scientific terminology, geometric patterns, more and more, and faster, day after day. And I was trying to teach at this time also. It was as if a dam had opened and a river of information was just flooding into my brain. I wasn't able to focus on my life because this was much more interesting than my life. And it was very beautiful. They were just fascinating. And I was looking forward to more and more and more. But then I started to wonder, and so I called my friend, who was our school psychologist, and I told him a little bit of what had happened. And his reply to me was, Sarah, I think you need a vacation. And perhaps he was right, perhaps I did. And so later that night, as I climbed into bed, and I prayed, as I normally do each night, I said, Dear God, thank you for these beautiful images, but I'm not able to handle this right now, so please take them away. The next morning, they were all gone. Absolutely gone. And I was happy. I had a great day the next day. But that night, as I lay down to sleep again, I felt a terrible loss, a hole, an emptiness inside of me. But I'm a rational woman. So I decided, that was just stress. I'll be fine. So then I moved to Florida, the Sunshine State. And in the year 2000, I was sitting outside my new classroom, grading papers in the sunshine. Then suddenly and very gently, very slowly, my lovely triangle reappeared. And over the next few months, very gently and very slowly, many of my images returned. So I began reading and researching as I was writing and drawing whatever came into my mind. It was wonderful. My research grew into a hobby for me for 12 years. I remarried. I retired from education. And I was wondering what to do with myself and my time. And then one day I was reading a book on symbols. And I decided to Google my triangle. So I Googled triangle, yellow, red, and blue circles, images. Suddenly, there it was. This was the image that I had been seeing in my mind, but I was never able to draw it. And I couldn't represent it as perfectly as it had been done here. Under it, it simply said, Martinus, symbol 11. As you can see, aside from my obvious lack of artistic talent, there is a difference in the order of the colors. They're backwards. You see, I have dyslexia, and everything I see, numbers, letters, everything, is a mirror image or backwards. So who was this Martinus? Again, I Googled. And I found so many men named Martinus. I found mathematicians, I found philosophers, I found musicians, I found artists, and I looked and I looked. I thought when I found the mathematician, that's probably who it is. No. And so finally it took me 3 days looking on and off until I could find the artist of the beautiful symbol 11. Martinus Thompson, referred to as Martinus, Danish Martinus Thompson, August 11, 1890 to March 8, 1981, was a Danish author, philosopher, and mystic. Born into a poor family with a limited education, Martinus claimed to have had a profound spiritual experience in March 1921. This experience, which he called cosmic consciousness, would be the inspiration for the books he wrote later on. The more I read, the more excited I became. I was not insane. I was not stressed. At last, there's the truth with science and religion. The melding of science and religion, spiritual science, cosmology. I found the Martinus site online, and I saw that they offered 2 international weeks in Klint, Denmark in July. Then the phone rang. It was my daughter. She was calling from California. Her 35th birthday was in July, and she wanted to take a trip. How about Denmark? I asked. Great, Mom. I've always wanted to go to Copenhagen. They have some of the best restaurants in the world. My daughter and I celebrated her 35th birthday in style, with every restaurant and sightseeing tour we could afford. We loved our time together in Copenhagen. End of July 2012. I got off the bus and entered the reception area. I was greeted with a welcoming smile from Peter. I knew this was where I was meant to be. The next week was more than I had ever anticipated. Beautiful and serene surroundings. Delicious and nutritious foods. Interesting and informative lectures. Profound and exciting class discussions. But best of all, meeting people of like mind who adored Martinus and his works as much as I did. How could I go home? I spoke to Mary and Ollie Terkelson, Mary McGovern and Ollie, and they offered me some advice. They told me to keep reading and studying, and if my friends happened to ask, to share what I had learned. But I was a complete novice. I returned to the U.S. in August. I studied, and I shared my experience with a few of my friends who actually asked. In September, I turned my Martinus pictures into a slide presentation, which I shared and I sent to Mary and Peter. In October, in the middle of the night, I created a YouTube video entitled Within the Crystal Connection, which if you go to YouTube and Google that, you can find that, about my own connections and what I had learned from Martinus. In November, I set up a Facebook page. And this is the same title, and you can find that also, and I'll accept you as a friend, to share the Martinus information and the inspiration with all of my friends. In December, I made the reservation to return for the second year to the Martinus Center for 2 full weeks, international weeks. I also shared my personal experience that I'm sharing with you today with Mary and a few Martinus folks. And last year's trip proved to be even more wonderful than the year before. But my U.S. friends were wanting more, as I was. So while I was in Klint, I asked Mary if she might consider a trip to the U.S. in the winter. After all, I live in Florida, the Sunshine State. And she agreed. So I set up 3 gatherings in my home with my friends and invited another Danish man, also a Martinus enthusiast. His name is Jonas, and he lives in the southern part of Florida. And I invited him to join us in the northern part of Florida. Our gatherings were very successful, especially Mary and my dog Huey. You have to realize Huey weighs about 50 pounds, and she would go to sleep on Mary as she was sitting in the chair. So thanks to Mary and Jonas, even my husband, do I have a picture of him here? Yes, he's over there. There's my husband. That's my kitchen. Even my husband began to take part, and he was asking some very profound, good questions. We're both Roman Catholic. He plans to join me next year here. And we've only just begun in the U.S. And as you know, the U.S. is really ready for Martinus and his cosmology. We are a large nation struggling with its own and the world's economy and the moral decline. But education must happen slowly and purposefully. Recently, in April, I received this email. Hello. For 8 years, I've wanted to talk with someone in the U.S. about Martinus. It was a pleasant surprise to see you in the Martinus Quarterly. You are a well for the thirsty and food for the hungry. Bravo. Perhaps not so coincidentally, I will be traveling to West Palm Beach this Saturday night, just for the evening. Not knowing your Florida location, if you would be close by, perhaps we could meet and talk over an evening meal or just dessert. In any event, I wish I'd seen you earlier, but then I am social media challenged, so it must have been the right time now. Please inform me of any future seminars and I'll try to make it down for them. Best regards, Jeff F., Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Ohio. That's where my original home was. That's where it had all begun for me. I forwarded this email to Jonas because he lived in West Palm Beach, and he met with Jeff. But Jeff and I spoke on the phone. In this country, the USA, a country of 318 million people, spread over 9.83 million square kilometers, Jeff lives 15 kilometers from my Ohio home and 5 kilometers from my son. So, where's Martinus? I found him. He's visiting the U.S. and he has perfect timing and a wonderful sense of humor. In all honesty and sincerity, I really don't know what happened to me 15 years ago, and perhaps I never will. But what I do know is that what happened in November of 1998 has brought me here, 8,000 kilometers, to Klint, Denmark. And it has opened the door to the Martinus Institute, to Martinus and his cosmology, and to new friends like yourselves, neighbors from all over the world. For this amazing journey, I am eternally grateful. So happy birthday, Martinus. Yes, indeed, a living connection of consciousness is born of the very highest form of love, and therefore, everything is very good. Thank you.